Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, today we are going to go through the strength-based approach, webinar 4 of 4. So you've made it. Well done. You've made it to the last webinar or movie or recording or however you want to call it. So thanks again for being here and for pushing through and making it through this web-based training. So today we're going to get started and we're going to talk about consequencing and resources for you just when you're interacting with participants in the program that you work in. So what we'll talk about today is reframing. We'll also discuss more skill building, more tools to be able to talk through issues with participants, or just life experiences that people are having as they complete the program. We'll look at using your words strategically. We all know that it's very important in how we speak to others, and it can make a big difference. We'll look at scaling, which you saw in the previous session, in session 3, and then who, what, where, when, how questions, and we'll talk about the reason to avoid why. And then we'll go through basic limit setting when we know people are pushing boundaries, and that is going to be happening all the time. And we'll also look at strength-based consequencing and go through some examples. We'll not actually complete that part of it like you would in the live training, because that's really best done in a group effort. But we'll look at 3 different examples of strength-based consequencing, how it works, and what the benefit is. Because a lot of times that's something that really people have a hard time with, oftentimes when it's something that's such a foreign concept. So we really want to explain that well, and hopefully you will understand the benefit of that, but also see the full big picture as well. So that's where we're going to go today, and I hope not to keep you longer than 20 minutes. But again, this is a 14-hour training usually, so we're kind of rushing through it and doing, obviously, no group activities because it's just you and the computer. So this says, barns burnt down, now you can see the moon. And supposedly it was some monk who originally said this, but this is a reframe of an experience that is really negative and really nothing anyone would ever want. But it's looking at it and trying to reframe what could be the positive there. So a skill of discovering a positive in what initially appears to be a negative. It's the ability to discover something of value and to build on it. So that is different than silver lining, right? It's different than just looking at, life through rose-colored glasses, but it's really looking at initially something is negative. We're not denying that burning down of a barn or a house or whatever would be negative. That's awful. But it's discovering something of value through it and building on that. So some examples are when we talk through participant challenging behaviors. So one challenging behavior that we see a lot is participants kind of arguing about things and trying to come up with their own ideas and their own plans and not wanting to just go with the flow. Well, that is a challenging behavior, especially when you have so many other people to care for besides just this one person who's very vocal about her opinions. But the positive, the reframe in that type of behavior, while it's negative to be able to be expressed that way all the time, The positive in that is that that participant is able to advocate for herself. And so she is able to look at life and see what she needs to get from it and be able to advocate for herself. We just have to utilize that in a positive way rather than something that's negative or that's disrespectful. So that's one example of reframing. Another example would be when a participant withdraws. We know that a lot of times people withdraw when they're overwhelmed or when they're angry or sad or scared. That can be a coping mechanism. So it can be difficult, though, in a group program if someone's never speaking or never really interacting that much. Thinking about that kind of behavior, what's the positive in that? Well, the positive is that they know they have some self-control. They know what they don't want to say out loud, and what would be maybe hurtful to themselves or to others when saying that out loud. So there's some self-control there. And there's also some kind of healthy coping if that happens when the person's angry or upset about something. So this is reframing. We try to do this all the time. We're not denying that withdrawal or that with constantly giving your opinion unasked for is we're not denying that those are negative behaviors. However, there are some positives in that we want to build on in a pro-social positive way. That's reframing. So using your words strategically. We all know how important words are. Who, what, when, where, and how questions, not why. Hopefully maybe you've heard this before, maybe not, but the why question most of the time puts somebody on the defensive. They feel like they have to explain themselves. If I said, why'd you do that? That really sounds like I don't approve and I don't get it at all, and I'm judging in that situation. Or if I said, you know, why did you decide it was a good idea to go upstairs when no one else is there and you knew you couldn't get inside? That is a judging question. So thinking through that, it automatically puts somebody on the defensive and it doesn't open up dialogue for a conversation. It's very much a judgment question when we ask somebody why. So try to avoid those kinds of questions and really go with these other more open-ended questions. Possibility language. You maybe saw the video, The Power of Yet. And from a kid's perspective, we can see how that would be important. The fact that you haven't mastered something yet doesn't mean that you never will. And the fact that you don't understand something or aren't really great at it doesn't mean that you never will. It's just, it hasn't happened yet. So when we can help participants reframe their language to be possibility language, it helps them understand that this is not a permanent situation. They're moving forward in some type of way. Even when it feels like when they first get to Wellspring, maybe they're going to be here forever. And 18 months or 12 months or whatever it is seems like a really long time. So we want to help them see possibility language. And that Sesame Street Power of Yet video really helps us to do that. Tentative language is another important tool, and this just is kind of guessing, honestly. When we know a participant is down or feeling bad or has had some kind of episode or outburst or whatever the case may be, we can look at it from a tentative language point of view. You know, I noticed that you didn't speak in group today, and usually you do, and you bring up ideas. Could it be that something is going on with you that that's maybe causing you to not speak in group situations? So could it be, it's not saying there has to be something going on with you, what in the world is going on? It's not asking it like that, but could it be that there's something going on? And that allows them to decide whether or not they want to tell you. It also is that tracking and punctuating, which we talked about in the first or second session, where we're observing things about the participant so that they really know that they're being validated and known and seen and heard. And that's something that everybody wants. So tentative language, could it be, is it possible that, I was thinking maybe it could be this. So we're not telling somebody how they feel or what it could be, but we're asking in a tentative way, hey, I'm thinking maybe this could have happened. Am I right in that? Or could you tell me what's going on? That kind of language. So tentative, not telling somebody how they feel or how they're acting. Externalizing the problem is really helpful when people feel like they are having a hard time managing some of kind of behavior, whether it's impulse control or anger or whatever it is. Could be a substance. And we might say, were you more in charge today, or was the habit or was the substance more in charge today? Or were you more in charge today, or was anger more in charge today for you? So that's externalizing the problem. You are not your anger. You are not the substance that you are addicted to or abusing. You are not those things. What you are is this person, and you're struggling with this problem. So externalizing the problem helps us see how we can manage it and overcome it, and that it's not in us innately and part of who we are. So were you more in charge today, or was anger? Were you more in charge today, or was being withdrawn or depression or anxiety? Those kinds of things are helpful questions, and it asks participants really to look inside themselves, which is what we want. And then we talked about more versus elimination before, but it's just doing more of something that's working rather than trying to cut out curse words. We'll try to do more and say more nice things about each other. So we want to empower youth and, of course, all of our adults in our adult programs as well. Through encouragement versus praise. This gives people the tools to see their efforts working well. This works with adults. This works with babies. It works with teenagers. It works with toddlers. It works in all different areas where we want to encourage the process, encourage the effort, if you remember from the previous webinar, and praise is the product. So encouragement encourages the effort. Praise looks at the product, kind of the end result. So that's fine to say, great job, you look nice. But we might also think about saying, you worked really hard on this, or you took some time to get ready and pick out those clothes and do your hair. It looks nice. Those kinds of things are a combination of encouragement and praise, and that's okay. But we want to encourage the effort that a participant is making. Scaling, we talked about scaling. So we're looking at, on a 1 to 10 scale, how are you feeling about utilizing these DBT or CBT skills that you learned today in group? Or on a 1 to 10 scale, how do you feel after the conversation that you had with your mom on the phone? And, why not if they say a 7? Well, how come you're not at a 6 then? You might say. And they can tell you, well, there were a lot of the good things about the conversation, but it just ended badly. So that just helps you to kind of continue conversation in a therapeutic way that asks them to really analyze and think about their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We want to focus on exceptions. Where are they doing well? Where they maybe hadn't had success in the past, and continue those moments. Focus on exceptions. Usually, um, you know, usually it seems as though you get anxiety before tests, but it seems today that you're feeling really good about it. What's different? What do you think you did differently? Focusing on those exceptions, those small wins, those successes really helps people to continue in their efforts. Same as what celebrating small successes do. And then always looking at the concept of practice. We're always practicing, we're always trying to get better. And that's true in all areas of our lives, whether it's work and school or parenting or, being a good friend, or trying a new hobby, whatever it is, we're practicing, we're trying to improve. And so now we'll get to kind of the strength-based response to challenging behaviors. So we want to make sure we focus on limit setting. These are the rules. This is what we're doing. We want to be consistent. It's important with, working with children, working with adults. We just want people to have some consistency and know the limits and know the boundaries and where that shifts. So, and we want to focus on process talk instead of why. We're focusing on, I'm sure you had a good reason for putting your head down during class today and kind of checking out. Can you tell me more about that? Instead of blaming or shaming or judging or being frustrated or angry, we're trying to understand. And trying to understand is really a part of empathy. It's one of the tools that we use with empathy. Then you also have a consequence or response plan. So that is an action plan. It's a behavior plan. Different programs call it different things. It's a progressive discipline plan. Those are different names for it. So just go with response plan because that's the name it was when I first came to Wellspring, and now we have so many different programs that people have called it different things. So it's essentially a plan for improving behaviors. So strength-based consequencing is designed to use or build on a current identified strength to address the problem. So we're looking at not just punishing somebody, because punishment is not solving a problem, it's just retribution for an action done. But we want to use or build on a strength to address what the issue is. So it's addressing the problem in a different way. We also want to work toward learning or developing a needed strength to prevent the problem in the future. So where is there a missing skill or a missing strength that we need to give them some practice on? So remember, the strength base is all about practicing. So we want to give them some practice for that. And then tips before you consequence. We really want to know the person's strengths, who and what is important to them. We can only do that if we know them well, right? So we can only do that if we have a rapport built, if we've worked on all of these other kind of languaging activities, and we are knowledgeable about who the participant is. We always want to be looking for strengths, right? It could be good practice to write down the strengths of the participants as you notice them at the end of your shift or in a weekly staff meeting. We want to make sure that we know their strengths and who or what is important to them. It will be helpful in the consequencing and understanding their behaviors and their motivations. We also want to know the person's past successes. We can't do that really in day 3 of the program, but we can definitely do it on day 30, and we can definitely do it 3 months in. So we want to know the person's past successes, where and what it enables them to be successful and to function in the program successfully. That'll help us to be able to consequence appropriately. And remember, you're still going to address inappropriate behavior. It's just that how you respond and talk about it are what you do differently. You're still addressing that this is not okay. This is not an okay action. You cannot do this. You are in this program for a specific reason, and these kinds of behaviors are not allowed. So you're still addressing that it's an issue. We're not seeing things through rose-colored glasses. Oh, you can cuss anybody out you want to. You're just asserting your independence. Yay, you. Go freedom. No, that's not how it works. That's not going to serve them well in the future. So we want to be able to address the problem and talk about it in a different way. So when consequencing a serious behavior, we want to apply a programmatic or logical consequence immediately. Maybe it's that they are spending some time in their room. Maybe it's that they don't get to go on that outing today. Maybe it's that they have a meeting with the program coordinator about ways that they're going to stay in the program. Maybe they have to clean up a mess that they made, or give something back that maybe was stolen. We're going to address the actual logical consequence immediately. Then we will utilize a strength-based consequence for them to earn back privileges or eliminate restrictions. So to unfreeze their stage or to move to the next stage, they need to do these things before they can do that. So that's how strength-based consequencing really works in Wellspring. So I'll come back to this so that we can be mindful of that as we're going through the consequences. So this is how you would actually consequence someone. And in a live format, we would practice. I would give you a type of behavior. You would make up a composite participant, and we would talk through what that person's motivations are and all of those things, and do a mock client consequencing. But that works better in a live group format. So we'll just think about these. So identify the unacceptable behavior. Usually that's pretty clear. The reason they're in trouble or getting a consequence, or that we're all having this conversation. Identify the missing strength or the missing skill that contributed to the unacceptable behavior. Was it a lack of impulse control, a lack of coping skills? Is it, all kinds of things. Identify existing strengths. So where are they strong? And we want to come up with a task or a project that would assist them in developing the missing strength or skill, or use an existing strength in responding to the behavior. So a participant curses out others when their needs aren't met. So thinking through this, we're going to identify the unacceptable behavior, obviously cursing out others, missing strength, existing strength, and a project. So the problem behavior is verbal aggression. The participant lacks assertive ways to get their needs met. Verbal aggression has helped them out on the streets, and it has helped them to get where they are, to be unharmed in different situations if they take on the aggressor role. So we want to give them assertive ways to get their needs met. The participant is also dramatic. They like attention. Those are their strengths, her strengths. So the participant will be asked to research the difference between passive-aggressive, aggressive, and assertive behaviors and create a play to perform for other residents that role plays the differences. So you can see here that by creating a play and performing it for others, We're building on her dramatic skills and that she likes attention. But we're also looking at building her knowledge in areas of assertive ways to get her needs met. So that would be a strength-based consequence. So again, unacceptable behavior, missing strength or skill. Number 3, existing strengths. Number 4, a task to help them develop those skills. Okay, so here's our second example. A participant is using substances. This may happen more with adults than with kids when they come back on passes or whatever, but it happens in all of the programs for sure. So the problem behavior, of course, is using substances. And the missing strength or skill is that the participant is self-medicating feelings. Existing strengths include athleticism, caring about appearance, and enjoys talking and conversation. So our project, hopefully you're already kind of thinking, what could you do? Participant will ask athletes about pros and cons of drugs on performance, appearance, physical health, etc., and give a talk about this to other residents. So she's also, in the same way, building on her love for athletics and appearance and liking to talk, utilizing all those strengths in a pro-social way. She's going to learn about, obviously, athletes cannot use substances if they're going to perform at their top level. So this helps her to learn, and it helps her to educate the other participants. This is a consequence. However, she probably had that substance taken away, was not allowed to go on a field trip, and was also frozen in her stage or went down a level. Either way, lost some privileges because of bringing substances into the program. That's her logical, immediate consequence. This is her strength-based consequence. So you can see you're getting the idea. Identify unacceptable behavior, missing strength, existing strength, task or project to build on that. So here's our last example for today. The participant runs away. The unacceptable behavior is obviously leaving at night. The participant is either impulsive, can't manage their feelings, is a thrill seeker, or doesn't think about self-care. So this one we're not quite sure. Maybe they haven't been in the program that long, but this is a major problem, right? So we want to make sure we address it. So the participant we do know is very curious, likes using the internet, likes journaling, likes learning new things. So we want to build on those skills. Obviously, we've already, again, frozen the stage or whatever the logical consequence is going to be. So the participant will be asked to check 5 to 7 websites or blogs and write about common things that happen to people on the street at night if they're a thrill seeker, or impulse control strategies if they're doing this just because they're impulsive and it seems fun at the moment. Or pro-social ways of expressing feelings if tolerance is the issue. If they're just like, I can't do this anymore, I have to get out of here and escape at night. Everyone's getting on my nerves. I hate everybody. So we're going to look at ways to express feelings appropriately. So we really try to get to the bottom of that here. This is just an example of ways that it could work in different, with different participants who are running away or eloping or leaving the home, for different reasons. So we need to remember that strength-based consequences are designed to apply programmatic or logical consequences immediately. If someone's fighting, we're not just going to say, okay, I can see you're really strong in this area. No, we're going to isolate the person, de-escalate the situation. They lose a level, they'll clean up the mess, all of those things. So we want to apply a programmatic or logical consequence, and use a strength-based consequence to earn back privileges or eliminate restrictions. So it's important to remember with the strength-based consequencing. When consequencing a serious behavior, such as something that's very harmful or dangerous, like leaving at night or bringing a substance into a program, we do that immediately, applying that immediately, and then you earn back privileges. So just want to review this. I want to make it really clear. I know I've said it probably 3 or 4 times now, but want to review this and make sure we're all on the same page there. So before it gets to that level, we want to have practice in basic limit setting. When we know a participant is testing the boundaries, when it's a lot of free time available, things like that. You know, we see this little picture. I hate cleaning. It would have been better to take my shoes off. Logical consequence here of having to clean up the mess. We want to make sure that we acknowledge the feelings. I hear that you're frustrated that, you know, the field trip has changed and we're not going today. State the limit, but we're doing this today instead. This is what we're doing. And give choices. You can either do this or do that. And so we're giving them choices, and then we're restating the limit. This works again with adults, it works with teens, it works with children, but it's helpful to make sure that we are all practicing basic limit setting, because it's difficult to be in a group program, and it's difficult to be constantly around others, but we want to make sure that we uphold the limits and that we uphold the rules. It's very difficult in a program when one shift or one group of staff are not upholding the rules and making exceptions and allowances, and the next shift or staff is, because that's their understanding of what they have to do. So we all want to make sure that we can set limits for participants. So this is where in our live session we would help you with creating strength-based consequences on your own. We would ask you to come up with a mock client, not somebody real, their name and age and reason they're in the program. And then we'd ask you for at least 3 strengths so you can consequence appropriately, that you know who and what is important to them so that the consequencing is appropriate, and their vision of the future. We'll talk about how we understand that vision of the future in just a minute. So this is where we would do a group activity. Focusing on tools for every day. Scaling, always a possibility. We always want to scale with 10 being the positive, as far as, you know, feeling positive or confident or great about how something went. Miracle question is another tool you can use. It's basically just, supposing tonight while you were sleeping a miracle occurred. When you awoke tomorrow, what would be some of the things you would notice that would tell you life had suddenly gotten better? Sometimes what they tell us about things have gotten better is completely different than what we would have guessed or what we would have assumed about them. So this question really allows us to get some more information about who and what is important to them for sure. And then also the question, I mentioned this before, if you had a perfect day, what would you do? Where would you be? Who'd be with you? Asking them things like that allows them to think through, and it really allows you to get to know each other. If you're, you know, on the way to a doctor's appointment or waiting for, you know, a visit or whatever it is, you know, having appropriate conversation and therapeutic conversation is really important. We want to talk about reframing those challenging behaviors. We want to look for the positive and build on those in a more pro-social way. We want to ask who, what, where, when, and how questions to get more response and better answers. We want to focus on encouragement, not as much praise for the product, but encouragement for the effort. And those are some tools that you can use every day. So choose one or two of these and think about ways that you can use them in your everyday interactions with participants. And then you can continue to build those. So some closing reflections. What are you taking away from this training that will be important for you to remember? What tools are you going to utilize and make some changes in your life? As far as interacting with participants, it helps with interacting with family and everyone else we are around as well. And what are you going to practice doing differently or more of in relation to participants in the coming month? Now that you've been trained and successfully completed the programming there, what are you going to do differently? That is the end of our strength-based webinar series. So way to go and well done. I apologize for going a little long with this one. It's just the consequences really take a while. So thanks for being here and for pushing through. And good luck in your new position at Wellspring Living.